I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are Velocities in Music. This is our music podcast where we discuss music. As strange as that sounds. Tom, we did album reviews for 4.5 years. And it was a good run.
Yeah.
And, you know, you and I, when we were on that run, we never really took the time to stop and talk about a lot of the things in music that we were excited about, that we found that we were getting in conversations with a lot of other people. Mm-hmm. One of those things came around every single year towards the end of the year in the holiday times, from Thanksgiving to Christmas to New Year's. A lot of Christmas music is played, and I think that we are overdue for discussing Christmas music. From really,
let's hit it.
We're really just hashing it out. Mm-hmm. So, Tom, I got to open this up with one question for you.
Okay.
Do you love Christmas music?
Oh man, it's funny. You'd think it'd be a simple question to answer.
It's not a simple question.
No,
to answer,
it's not.
And that's why we have to discuss it today.
So, okay, so trying to think about my own thoughts and feelings on the subject here, I can't say that I love Christmas music. I think that's a little strong, but there's a lot of it that I do enjoy.
Okay.
And sometimes it's not even about enjoying it from a raw musical perspective. It's about enjoying the experience. It's all part of the holiday package, right? And I think that there's a certain atmosphere and ambiance about that time of the year that people really get into, and I certainly do too. There's a nostalgic aspect to it.
Certainly.
And of course, the music is just part of that.
Right.
It's unavoidable.
Right. I, myself, love Christmas. It is. It has become my favorite holiday. Halloween used to be my favorite holiday, but Christmas has become my favorite holiday, mostly because of my wife, and now I have a kid too, so Christmas is becoming even more of a big deal, right?
Get to kind of relive your old Christmases through your son's eyes,
and moreover, I'm responsible for giving him the same, if not better, Christmas experiences and memories and traditions than I had as a kid. And my dad took this very seriously, so I had like a huge, like my family just goes all out for Christmas, a big meal, trees, the Christmas music blaring all through the month of December. So this was just ingrained into my brain at a very early age to listen to just oodles of Christmas music as soon as Thanksgiving ended. And that's a topic we'll talk about in a little bit here. When is the appropriate time to start listening to music? But I got to say that, over the years, I went to college and just became sick of Christmas. I was done with it. The magic had wore off, and now I'm kind of rediscovering that magic. And I gotta say that music is one of the ways in which I'm rediscovering Christmas. There are a lot of really crappy Christmas albums and Christmas songs out there, but there's also a number of really good Christmas albums and Christmas songs. And I think that one of the things that just naturally makes Christmas music so polarizing is the fact that there's really only a bevy of 30, 40 different Christmas songs,
right?
And that are just done in different renditions through various artists and compilations, right? And so that natural repetitiveness of Christmas, of doing the same thing, the same tired song over and over again in just like a different style or a different light. There is an inevitable redundancy there that I think rubs people the wrong way. But there are just a ton of people in the world, or at least that I interact with on a regular basis, who simply will tell you, if you ask them that same question I just asked you, do you like Christmas music? They will say, no, I hate Christmas music. Bah humbug.
Well, I think that there are a lot of other things contributing to that, the hatred for Christmas music. I think it'd be tough to just say, in general, I hate Christmas music because of its melodies and instrumentation and song construction. You can't pick it apart like that, because there's nothing inherently that makes a Christmas song a Christmas song. I think that there's some general trends. If we're really going to get technical for just a moment, you can pick apart some kind of major key general melodies, very upbeat. You get a lot of sleigh bells, you get a lot of chimes, things like that in a lot of popular recordings, some strings. But really, a lot of that comes down to the lyrics. So I don't think that you can really just say, I hate Christmas music because of the music, but it's, once again, like I said, more about the experience. I think some people don't get into that aspect of it. And there also is kind of a more commercial part of it that I think people, it just rubs them the wrong way, because there's something kitschy about it. There's something gimmicky about it. And I think some people are just going to be turned off by that.
For sure. So Tom, what are some attributes of a good Christmas record or a bad Christmas record from your perspective?
Well, at this point in time in 2015, I think that there's a historical context that has to be taken into account because, I think a lot of great Christmas music, what's considered now to be classic, came out in the first half of the 20th century, really, and then even maybe through like the 60s or so. But I think at this point, it's really difficult to have a fresh take on it, because there's that line. Well, let me take a step back, because essentially, if you're recording a Christmas record, you're probably not going to have a lot of originals on there.
You're not.
You're going to do a lot of the classics, and essentially what they come off as is covers.
Right.
But cover is kind of a problematic term in this context because really a lot of these songs were written so long ago, we don't have any connection or attachment to the original writer.
That's a great point.
I was looking up in preparation for this episode, Jake, when some of these classic songs were written. Little Drummer Boy was written in the 1940s. Thought that was kind of interesting. But a lot of the other ones I looked at, like God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen, Silent Night, they were written in like the 1800s, really before recorded music was a big popular thing or even really like a scientific realization.
Right. And a lot of classic songs come from classic Christmas movies like White Christmas.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's another connection there as well. There's something more to associate that particular track with than just the audio recording, because there's the movie that goes along with it. But because of that, there's a lot of these songs, what I'm getting at is that there's no authoritative original. There are typically versions that people like best and are most well known, but because of that, anyone trying to tackle these tracks really has to bring something new to the table. But I think it's a delicate balance because a lot of times people will try to overcompensate for that and change the songs in such a way that, people don't like these classic nostalgic tunes that they've grown up with to be bastardized and ripped apart.
That's a great point.
What you really have to do is do the song respect while still managing to make it your own. And that's a fine line where you're just inherently going to piss people off.
Yep. 2 albums that are on every single best Christmas album list. If you Google it, you'll find 2 albums. James Brown's Funky Christmas and A Motown Christmas. Both of those records are Christmas classics, right? And I gotta say, I did not grow up listening to those records. Now, in my search to find all things music in my adult years, I've gone back and listened to some James Brown. I really enjoyed James Brown, but to
he's
me,
terrific.
But for whatever reason, I can't mentally associate James Brown to Christmas. So even when I put on James Brown's Funky Christmas, which like I said, undisputed great Christmas record. I can't connect it to Christmas, even though he's singing about holiday things. So I really struggle with that at times. I really need the kitschy, repetitive songs to associate that with Christmas, and it needs to be somewhat true to form for me to fall in love with it.
Well, and it depends on the order in which you were exposed to things.
Exactly.
Right? Because, James Brown, I'm completely in the same boat as you, Jake. While I love everything James Brown has pretty much ever done, the guy was a genius. I'm not going to go listen to his Christmas album when I could listen to his other classics, right? And I didn't grow up with it.
Right.
So if I were to try to get into his Christmas music now, it would feel a little bit forced.
Yeah.
But for people who grew up with that, if they just don't have any, cognizant memory of before they heard those things every holiday season, I think that's how these culturally begin to get ingrained into our minds.
Yeah.
And that tends to be, it'll be different from family to family. I think it's a very generational, familial thing.
That's a good point.
But it's just kind of depends on where that origin is.
Yeah, 2 other albums I would note are Weezer's Christmas album and also Sufjan Stevens' Songs for Christmas, which is a behemoth. That thing is huge. And if you listen to it, some of the songs I really like, but with like a lot of Sufjan Stevens' more prolific works, it's kind of hit and miss, just with the inherent risk of a large album. And Sufjan being a very progressive, out there kind of artist, indie rock, indie pop artist, his take on a Christmas record is similarly polarizing, I would say. And overall, those are records I'll listen to probably once every year, and then I don't come back to them. So how I've gone through this journey, Tom, and over the last few years, especially since we were doing Velocity Velocities in Music, where I wanted to find the best Christmas album. So I did go out there and Google a ton of different lists, and anytime I would find an album that showed up on the list, I made a giant Spotify playlist of all the great Christmas records.
Sure.
And then I would go through and just put it on play, and then like every night just listen to the next one. And so like I have 2 TVs right next to each other. I don't have a fireplace in my house, but I had music playing from one, and then a fireplace on my Chromecast on the other one. And so that's how I would experience Christmas music over the past couple years.
Get the mood going.
Yeah, and so through that, like I've developed a list of like albums that I like and albums that I don't like, and we'll kind of start going through Velocities in Music list here in a couple of seconds. But one of the things that I found was that I had like a core group of records that I kept coming back to, and a lot of them revolved around classics, jazz, and instrumentals. So my next question, Tom, is instrumental versus vocal-based Christmas music. What do you find yourself more drawn to? Because I will say that for me, I'm more drawn to instrumental-based Christmas music.
Really?
Yes, definitely.
That's interesting, because I would definitely say I'm the opposite.
Okay.
I'm drawn toward more vocal stuff. I think the reason for that is, really your entry to Christmas music, what makes it Christmas music a lot of the time is the lyrical content.
Yeah.
It's lyrics written about the holiday.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have instrumental versions of those, still, even if the what would be the vocal melody is done through some other kind of instrument, I'm thinking the lyrics in my head.
Are you?
Like, they're putting them in there subconsciously because that's what makes it familiar Christmas music to me. So I think that's part of it, is that for me it all funnels back to the vocals and kind of defining why it's a Christmas song.
Yeah.
But then another part of it too is just a lot of my favorite Christmas music is vocal centered. I love the performances of artists like Bing Crosby,
Dean Martin,
the Rat Pack, Elvis Presley, Nat King Cole, artists like that.
Ella Fitzgerald.
Right. Those, classic jazz vocalists.
Right.
Man, like that's what I associate Christmas music with. And so for me, the vocal style is a big part of it on top, in conjunction with the writing itself.
Yeah.
But that's just me.
Yeah, and I definitely you noted a lot of classic Christmas artists or artists in general, and a lot of jazz-based Christmas artists. Louis Armstrong, Ella Fitzgerald,
for sure,
the Rat Pack in general. And I certainly like those more than contemporary artists that are doing new renditions of music. And
what about She and Him?
Yeah, God, just shoot me in the face. Oh man, She and Him. Ruining M. Ward forever. Thanks, Zoe. But overall, I think to me, Christmas is more about mood.
Yeah.
The ambiance. And that's why the instrumentals seem to resonate more with me. Mannheim Steamroller.
Mm-hmm.
I have often made jokes in album reviews about Mannheim Steamroller MIDI drums.
Oh, yeah.
And the only time of year I think that that's acceptable is in Christmas, because it just has this ambiance to it.
Right.
That, like Christmas, it's a bit kitschy, a bit gimmicky, a bit hokey, and it works.
Yeah, and that you make a really good point there, in that it is more acceptable for this because it's just part of the experience.
Yeah.
Another artist that I would cite, you mentioned Mannheim Steamroller. For me, it's Trans-Siberian Orchestra.
Oh, great call.
Trans-Siberian Orchestra has several Christmas albums, and while they have, a lot of non-Christmas work as well, to me, that stuff ends up being the most memorable. And I love, because it's this really cheesy combination of rock and like metal guitar with, orchestra and the kind of Christmas classics that you've come to know. But it's not something that I'd want to sit and listen to in the middle of the summer. It's just part of its tradition, and there's something to be said for tradition.
Good point. So should we start our favorite Christmas album list?
Let's do it.
All right. 10 Christmas albums from Velocities in Music up for you. Starting off with number 10 on our list, we have the Narada Christmas Collection. Narada, the Christmas Collection. This is an interesting album in that it's really just a compilation of a bunch of instrumental Christmas tracks that are somewhere between, I would say this is more of a new age Christmas record, a compilation of new age Christmas songs. The album kicks off with a chorus-full instrumental version of Joy to the World. Another track that I really want to highlight is the fingerpick guitar Ukrainian carol on Narada. And then also The Man from Caesarea is just there's like mandolin there. It's just absolutely gorgeous. And like I said, all instrumentation, a lot of real instrument with occasional electronic layers in there that really just make for a nice all-around sound that's totally focused on the mood of Christmas.
Next up is Frank Sinatra's A Jolly Christmas from Frank Sinatra. You know, about what you'd expect from a Frank Sinatra Christmas album. Frank Sinatra's just the man.
A lot of charisma.
Oh, absolutely.
If there's one guy who can make Christmas the most charismatic thing ever, it's Frank Sinatra.
It's true. But the thing about Frank Sinatra is he's also got this kind of like dark edge to him. You know, there's this like bourbon swilling kind of persona about him.
I love bourbon at Christmas time.
Oh man, it's great. It keeps you warm, right?
That's right.
You know, some schnapps chocolate.
Ooh, schnapps chocolate.
That's always a good
Speaking
choice.
my language now, Tom.
We're getting a little off topic here.
Okay.
But
Let's get back to music.
It's all part of the package, right? But Frank Sinatra, of course, I mean, what is there to say about him that hasn't been said? I mean, of course, the guy is going to put out a great Christmas record. And if you're just looking for that kind of smooth tone with your Christmas music, definitely Frank Sinatra.
Little town of Bethlehem, how still we see thee lie above thy deep and dreamless.
Number 8 on our list is George Winston's December. And one might say that this isn't necessarily a Christmas record, but I would argue strongly against that it definitely is. The album starts off with track 1 being Thanksgiving, and kind of coincidentally, we're recording this a couple days after Thanksgiving in 2015, and I gotta say that song really does sum up what Thanksgiving is. George Winston, for those of you who aren't familiar with his work, he is a kind of, I would say just classic pianist, and his albums are generally mostly piano based, and December certainly is that. It is all just like him on a grand piano playing these just perfectly tuned, perfectly executed songs, but they're very well composed as well. So it kicks it off with Thanksgiving. There's a number of great songs at the beginning, Joy, Prelude, and then track 5, Carol of the Bells, one of my all-time favorite Christmas songs, and his piano version of that is absolutely crazy. Following that, you have the 3-part song Night, which just is this really kind of creepy mood, and he uses a lot of the lower tones in the piano, and then he ends the album in a very beautiful way. Great Christmas record, especially if you like piano-based instrumental music.
Next, we have A Christmas Gift for You from Phil Spector. Phil Spector, of course, very prominent producer of the 1960s and so on. And he put together this Christmas compilation using, of course, his classic wall of sound production techniques, but a lot of just girl groups of the time, focus on the Ronettes, Crystals. This is as sugary as the frosting on the cookies that you put out for Santa. And and it's going to be so much so that apparently Jake is vomiting over in the corner.
So this is one of those records that it's on like every list, and I've put it on and listened to it a few times, and I had to remove it from my list because I also listen to my list occasionally on shuffle too, and this just doesn't work very well for shuffle because there's one track in here where he just goes off and like names like everyone. He just lists off a bunch of names and stuff, and it really doesn't work well, and it's really annoying. But the other thing was that none of these songs to me really were really the best version of that song.
Yeah.
It's just a good traditional rendition of that Christmas song. Number 6 on our Christmas album list is A Charlie Brown Christmas by Vince Guaraldi? Trio? Yeah. I don't know how to say that, but we're Guar and then Aldi.
Yeah.
Guar should do a Christmas record. I would really like that.
That'd be interesting.
But the Vince Guaraldi Trio and the Charlie Brown Christmas, first of all, Charlie Brown Christmas, epic Christmas movie. It's one of the go-to Christmas movies you have to watch every year. But to me, the soundtrack is the best part, and this is one of my favorite Christmas records, number 6 on our combined list. Kicks off O Tannenbaum, just a great great song. Overall, this is a pretty much an instrumental album. There are some occasional vocals, but I believe that they're mostly like children's choruses singing them, which really fits the Charlie Brown theme, right?
It does. Which is funny that because Charlie Brown, I just got to go off on this tangent real quick. Charlie Brown, I love that it's become a Christmas classic because really the whole lineup of Charlie Brown characters are like a bunch of depressed, sedated, middle-aged men and women. So, I mean, like Charlie Brown's balding for God's sakes. And then his friends are all like sad about their lives. And then they're listening to a bunch of jazz music. What like 9 or 10-year-olds are going to listen to a bunch of jazz music? I mean, really, this is why it's awesome. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, and probably why I like it now is because I'm becoming a depressed middle-aged person.
But the soundtrack is just fantastic. I mean, it's and the pairing. I think that there's something that you can't separate about that juxtaposition of just the kind of blasé Charlie Brown attitude with this just kind of fun swinging jazz music around Christmas time. Like it's chill, but it's fun. At number 5, we've got Elvis Presley's Elvis Christmas. Elvis, I'm actually not traditionally the biggest fan of Elvis. What I like about his Christmas renditions of these classics is that I think it just highlights his strong points, his strengths as a vocalist. I've always been a bigger fan of Elvis ballads, so some of the slower tracks on this album really stand out to me. He does them super smooth, and he just does these songs justice, to a degree that I think several of these have really become the go-tos for a lot of people.
And in particular, I think Blue Christmas is the definitive Elvis Presley, one of his definitive songs, but the definitive Elvis Presley Christmas song. And I think it's played all the time on every Christmas music station. And it really just, it strikes an emotional chord. He sounds like he's about ready to cry, and he really pulls it off. And it does kind of have, like, Christmas isn't all about being happy, right? Like, there's a lot of stress. There's a lot of other parts about Christmas, and being depressed and middle-aged myself, we're getting there. Blue Christmas seems to really resonate with me.
Blue Christmas without you, I'll be so blue just thinking.
Number 4 on our list, and tied for number 1, if not number 2 on my list. But it can't be number 1. I would tie it for number 1 with another record we'll talk about in a minute. Mannheim Steamroller's Christmas Live. Yes, a live album from Mannheim Steamroller. So Mannheim Steamroller is a very prolific new age. They're now officially a Christmas artist. They used to try to make albums that weren't Christmas albums, but I think they just gave up on that because their Christmas music was just so good and so popular that everyone listened to that, and that was the only thing that made them successful. And so now they actually go on tours. They have multiple touring acts going on at the same time, and I got to see one of them at here in town in Ames a few years ago at Steffen's Auditorium, and it was just like it's a very large, stoic concrete building, and it was just an awesome place to see Mannheim play. And they played a lot of the songs on Christmas Live, and it really did a lot of the sound justice. Now, the reason why I picked Christmas Live as my favorite Mannheim album is because I actually think it's the best Mannheim Steamroller album available, and trust me, I've listened to them all.
He's the expert, guys.
Yeah, like Mannheim Steamroller, like they do a lot of, they have these very creative albums, and a lot of their more studio-based songs that you find on their albums like are of course classics and sound great, but the albums themselves are not particularly well formed, structured, and fluid, and all the things that Velocities of Music espouses about what makes a good album, Christmas Live has. And I think that the live sound actually gives Mannheim Steamroller the space that they need to really allow their music to resonate. This album starts off with Angels That We've Heard on High, and then it goes into this like intro where Chip, the head of Mannheim Steamroller, like introduces the band. So you feel like you're getting to know all of them as they do this, and then they go into all of these, like this album, the middle part of this album really has this almost like Celtic rustic or medieval section to it, where you feel like you're sitting around a table in a castle while they're serving these like this big dinner, and there's dogs running around on the floor, and like you have like these artists playing off in the corner. It's just very atmospheric. It takes you to another place. And then the album kind of transitions out of that and goes into a little bit more of the traditional Mannheim sense with God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen, the more Celtic version of that, and then the rock version. It literally is -rock, and
rock.
it just kicks ass.
Oh yeah, those MIDI drums.
And it's
pounding.
full of MIDI drums, and how can you not love cheesy MIDI drums? It's just great and joyous.
Yeah,
you do a good job
it's
of
terrific. I gotta commend Mannheim Steamroller because they really got the business model right, because they're pretty much on sabbatical, like January through November.
Yeah.
Like, do they do anything during those months?
Yeah, they work at most 3 months out of the year, and they just rake in the cash
Right.
and make good Christmas music.
I gotta say, hats off to them. All right, cracking the top 3 here. We got Nat King Cole, The Christmas Song. The thing I love about Nat King Cole that I think he brings to Christmas music that some of the other artists we've talked about, some of the old crooners might not necessarily have, is just soul. He's just got that soul behind him that comes out in his performances that I think a lot of classic Christmas albums are missing.
If James Earl Jones is the definitive voice of Star Wars, then Nat King Cole has to be the definitive voice of Christmas.
Boom.
And his rendition of the Christmas song it is probably in my top 3. We'll talk about this later, but probably in my top 3 favorite Christmas songs. And he just does it justice. When you hear him open up Chestnuts Roasting on an Open Fire, like it sends chills down my spine. It embodies Christmas, and that is what Nat King Cole does. He shows up on every best Christmas album list, and definitely, it just like I said, embodies Christmas.
Chestnuts roasting on an open fire, Jack Frost nipping at your nose.
Number 2 on our list is a compilation from the A Very Special Christmas series, and it's Volume 1, A Very Special Christmas. A Very Special Christmas, as I said, is a series of Christmas compilations. Essentially, it's kind of like now That's What I Call Music, but it was for Christmas music, A Very Special Christmas. They did 7 volumes that came out every 3 or 4 years. Volume 1 came out in October of 1987. So actually, this came out just a couple of months after I was born. I was born in July of 1987, and so my parents bought this and played it since essentially my first Christmas on. So I just have this connection to this record, but I've really grown to love a lot of the songs and think that most of the songs on this record are just classic Christmas songs. It's a compilation of a number of artists that were very big in the 80s, like Eurythmics, Whitney Houston, Pretenders, Sting, Run DMC, U2. Madonna has a great rendition of Santa Baby, which is one of my favorite Christmas tracks. And also Stevie Nicks closes this album off with Silent Night. I mentioned earlier Run DMC, the song Christmas in Hollis.
Great song.
Very unique Christmas song. And he just, they just absolutely kill it. And that song just gets stuck in my head whenever I hear it. A couple in here that I think are a little bit more controversial. I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus by John Cougar Mellencamp. He was still going by John Cougar at the time. And then Bob Seger in the Silver Bullet Band's Little Drummer Boy. Bryan Adams, Run, Rudolph, Run. And Bruce Springsteen, Tom, your favorite artist of all time.
Oh, God.
Merry Christmas, Baby. I actually love that song. I think he sells it when he goes Merry Christmas, baby, and you hear just all the women. It's a live rendition, so all the women in the crowd just start squealing, and it's just the greatest thing. It's just perfect. It's Christmas. Another thing that we'll talk about a little bit later, I think, again, is that this album has a lot of that beefy tenor sax that you find on every good Christmas song.
Oh yeah, beefy tenor sax, gotta have it.
It's the best.
December 24th on Hollis Ave at the dark. When I seen a man chilling with his dog at the park, I approached him very slowly with my heart full of fear. Looked at his dog, oh my God, a ill reindeer. But then I was feeling good, the man had a beard and a bag full of goodies, 12 o'clock.
All right, our number 1 Christmas album is Bing Crosby's White Christmas.
Yes.
This one gets a lot of acclaim, and I think that it is well-deserved.
Well-deserved. Although I regularly see this as listed as number 1.
Really?
Yeah.
It definitely is for me. For me, it's a classic. Then again, I'll say, I grew up on Bing Crosby. Aside from his Christmas work and White Christmas, I watched a lot of the Bing Crosby, Bob Hope movies growing up. My dad had me watch, and I really loved those. So I just love Bing Crosby's voice. I love his work. And he just has the perfect presentation for this. And really the reason that I put him above, some comparable artists like Frank Sinatra, who is lower on our list, but we still really like, is just Bing Crosby has this optimism to him that I think it captures the Christmas spirit, so to speak, really perfectly.
Yeah, and there's a number of tracks on here that are just go-to perfect tracks. His version of Silent Night, to me, is just hands down the best version of Silent Night I've ever heard. His version of God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen, fantastic. Jingle Bells. But then he closes the record with 2 really unique tracks that are just quintessential Christmas tracks. Christmas in Killarney, and then Maliki Kaliki Maka. I probably butchered that because I can never pronounce it. But just the whole Merry Christmas, I think it's like Hawaiian based, or at least tropical sounding, and it has the Andrews sisters.
Andrews sisters were great.
Oh, they were fantastic. So just a really cool way to close the
Christmas
record.
in Killarney is an interesting track, because that's not, that's one of those that I think it's impressive Bing Crosby really just, of course, made his own. It's not one that you hear people doing different versions of all the time. It's not overdone. It's really, there's the Bing version, and that's like the definitive one.
That's right.
Holly green, the ivy green, the prettiest picture you've ever seen is Christmas in Killarney with all of the folks at home. It's nice to know to kiss your beau while cuddling.
I also want to point out his version of Jingle Bells that you mentioned, which is really like jazzy and upbeat and really over the top when it comes down to it. But there's just something about it that even though it's kind of cheesy, I just can't help but smile when I'm listening to it.
Absolutely.
Spirits bright. What fun it is to ride and sing a sleighing song tonight.
Jingle bells, jingle bells, jingle all.
So that wraps up our top 10 favorite Christmas albums at Velocities of Music. And there's a good disclaimer we should throw in there. Note we said favorite. We're not arguing that these are the best Christmas records. To Tom and I, it's a very big difference when you talk about music as being the best music and music that's being your favorite. Favorites come and go, and with Christmas, I think everything's favorite, because depending on your view on Christmas, or maybe your religion or your family practices, or your just the culture you're from, Christmas is going to mean something entirely different to you, and just based on your past life and experiences. So it's definitely a favorite list, and I don't expect anybody to follow me down the road of just loving Mannheim Steamroller. Clearly, I'm not going to make an argument that Mannheim Steamroller is just the best band ever, or that Christmas Live is one of the best Mannheim albums, but it's certainly my favorite. So that's a good disclaimer to throw out there. Tom, I noticed a lot of instrumental albums and a lot of compilations there.
Yeah.
Compilations are interesting because there's a lot of compilations in Christmas music. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think a lot of it is because individual artists don't necessarily want to commit an entire album of their work to something like that. It's easier to just be part of a bigger picture kind of project, like with a very special Christmas Volume 1. Do you really expect every artist on that album to do an entire Christmas album? Not necessarily. So I think that it's inherently going to pull in some variety. Plus, it's just because since all of these songs have been written throughout the last hundreds of years very separately, they don't really lend themselves to any kind of albumization or things like that. I think that you have rare exceptions to that, like White Christmas, which of course, lines up with a movie. So they worked a narration into that anyway. Like there's something there to follow along with. Yeah. I would say that the Vince Guaraldi trio, Charlie Brown Christmas, because of the originality of the material and the fact that it's more a soundtrack to something as well, fits that a bit more. But naturally, you're going to have a lot of compilations because it's just a song-by-song kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think the trick is how can you make a compilation, even of Christmas or holiday music, flow as a cohesive musical experience. And I think that the best compilations do that very well. So, Tom, now that we're getting into the early part of December, Thanksgiving is past, Christmas music is being played everywhere, but it's been on the radio and at stores as early as just like the day after Halloween. It started being played. Have you been listening to Christmas music yet?
I actually haven't yet.
Okay,
but mostly that's just because I haven't really left my house a whole lot.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I haven't really put on the radio. I've been trying to catch up with our November album wrap up, which we just finished.
The best of 2015 is just right around the corner.
That's what my focus has been, but I'm sure that over the next couple weeks, it's going to pick up a lot more. And I'm not going to be able to avoid it. Not that I'm the kind of guy that goes out of my way to avoid it, but just so far, it hasn't really been there for me.
How early is too early to listen to Christmas music?
This is something that there's a lot of debate on.
There is.
And I'm not much of a Scrooge on this because I hear a lot of people where they draw the line is Thanksgiving, right? They say, oh, Christmas music, Thanksgiving hasn't even happened yet. Honestly, I think that's a little arbitrary. If Thanksgiving was in the second week of December, people would still say the same thing.
Yeah.
If Thanksgiving was in the first week of November, people would still say the same thing.
It's a symptom of another argument there.
Exactly.
Right.
I don't think that one holiday needs to rely on another holiday in terms of its timing.
With the exception of George Winston's song December, it's not like Thanksgiving has its own slew of Thanksgiving songs.
No, it doesn't. So there's not really anything there's no feet to step on in that regard. But for me, what it comes down to is it's more of a seasonal kind of thing. It has a lot to do with the weather. But then again, Jake, you and I are a couple of Midwestern dudes.
Yeah, it snowed in mid-November here. We had 5 inches of snow.
And so I usually associate that kind of weather with this. Now, I would imagine it's probably different for people who live in, other countries
Florida,
or parts of our
Arizona,
country that don't get that kind of inclement snow and ice mix that Iowa gets really badly all the time.
Yeah.
But so for me, it's usually once that comes around, it kind of triggers that feeling for me because it's a seasonal thing. But for me, I think that too early. I mean, certainly in October. No.
Halloween. That's just ridiculous.
Right. Exactly.
And who knows? So I've noticed that over the past few years, it seems that every city around has a Christmas or a station that will play Christmas music pretty much nonstop and throughout the end of the year. And they seem to start playing it earlier and earlier every year. In Iowa, the local station is Light 104.1. They started playing Christmas music, I think it was a week after Halloween was over. The first or second week of November, they started playing Christmas music.
And it's constant.
And it really is.
It's not just here's our hourly, daily,
Dose.
Christmas song. No, it's all the time.
It's here. We're going to just completely switch over.
Yeah.
And I think that the reason why they're doing that is because they get a huge spike in listeners. They sell more. Right. They must, and this is all speculation, but I have no figures to go along with this, but I believe that they would sell more ads during that time because their listenership goes up, and that has a naturally corporate sense to it. So I gotta say, there's part of me that is repulsed by that.
There is a very commercial aspect because there's also just the subconscious knee-jerk reaction of Christmas time, gotta buy, gotta buy stuff for people, gotta buy new Christmas lights, gotta buy gifts, gotta buy the right food.
That's not really what it's all about, or what it shouldn't be about. If I'm gonna be opinionated about something, I'm gonna be opinionated about that. And the corporate Christmas music station, turning on Christmas music early kind of goes along with that, I think. And so I think that maybe that plays into it as well, as why people get repulsed by Christmas music being played so early every year.
Because there is that commercial aspect.
The other aspect of it is that and it's not just Light 104.1. I don't mean to just bash on our local channel here, but I think that all of these corporate stations, pretty much everyone I talk to, thinks that they just do a piss poor job of playing good Christmas music. And so you have to ask yourself, what are the good songs and why are they playing all of the bad Christmas songs?
Right. Well, first
are there people out there who actually like some of those songs? And let's go through, Tom. I think we should address.
Okay, let's do.
What are the worst Christmas songs to you?
So first off, before I dive into what my worst Christmas songs are, there is an ounce of subjectivity there.
Oh, this is all subjective,
also,
right?
I will say, I think that sometimes people are just kind of masochistic about this. I think that even if you don't like it, there's part of you that wants to hear some of those crappy songs. It's like eating some Bertie Bott's every flavor beans, right? Like you just you got to take the bad with the good, or right? Or like I'm a big sci-fi fan, as I've mentioned. I really like the show X-Files. I've seen every episode of it. Let me tell you, there's some really crappy episodes of the X-Files, but you got to take the bad with the good. I feel like Christmas songs is the same way. It would almost not be as fun and as memorable if you just had the good ones, because you got to get those groaners in there that you're just like, oh, this sucks, but you love to hate it.
I agree with that, with the exception of She and Him. I don't want to have to listen to any She and Him at any time of the year, but the Christmas album just doesn't do it for me either. And I still don't get why people like She and Him. I just don't understand.
That's fair. But some of those songs that are going to come up no matter what. I mean, first, we got As Much As We Love the Guy, Wonderful Christmas Time by Paul McCartney.
Oh my God, what a terrible Christmas song.
It's just a tragedy.
I have to resist changing the channel, because I don't listen to that song on my own. So it's only when I'm listening to the radio station, and
Right.
I have to resist changing the channel.
Yeah, it's just awful.
We're here tonight, and that's enough. Simply having a wonderful Christmas time. Simply.
Along with that, the Beach Boys, Little Saint Nick. You
Little
have that
Saint
one
Nick.
written
Oh,
down.
that one's definitely on my
Merry
list.
Christmas, Saint Nick, which to me always sounds like Satan when they say
Christmas comes this time each year. Of course it does. What? It's set on a set day. It's static. Of course Christmas comes the same time every year. What were they? I can't comp.
That one's pretty awful. Then there's, of course, you know the one, the Christmas Shoes? The artist escapes me, but that's super depressing
It's
story.
super depressing.
But, just like, oh man, thanks for making me feel like crap.
Yeah, it's not a good song either. The music is terrible.
It's
not putrid. It's drivel.
Right.
Oh, and they play it over and over again. Good call.
They do.
Another good one to point out, Tom. We were talking about this earlier. John Lennon's
Oh my
Happy
God.
Christmas, War is Over.
So the thing that I
Why
hate...
are the Beatles just botching Christmas?
Right. The thing that I hate about this song is that it's classic, like, John Lennon passive-aggressive preachy bullshit. I just, like, the whole song just comes off as like, so this is Christmas. What have you done? Yeah. I hope you have a good season and feel good about yourself. You know, people are struggling and starving in parts of the world, but I hope you're having a good Christmas. I hope, you know, none of that matters. I hope that you feel good about your Christmas season. Like, thanks for making me feel like a dick for trying to enjoy some family time, man.
Yeah, no kidding.
God, it's
And let alone, like, the kids he hired to sing the War is Over part,
Right.
just are the worst singers ever. Like, they have no hope. Like, he damaged those kids permanently because they're so out of tune. And I don't understand. If you listen to the Home Alone soundtrack, which, funny enough, Home Alone has become just a Christmas classic movie, and the soundtrack, written by, of course, John Williams, is fantastic. Now, I wouldn't go as far as to say that that's a go-to Christmas album. I've tried to put it in a list, and it's kind of cool at times.
kind of has to go with the movie.
It does.
Yeah.
It really needs the movie to carry it. But I will say there's a number of like children's chorals in there. I think Carol of the Bells is one of those songs. And there's a children's chorus, and it's just absolutely stunning. It's gorgeous.
Right.
Why couldn't John Lennon had just a nicely composed and performed rendition
it's
of
not
War is
only
Over?
that, even if you change the preachy lyrics, took out the crappy kids choir, it's still, the melody is repetitive. It just goes on and on. It's the same two melody lines. Oh, this is Christmas. Like it's the same thing over and over again. It never changes. It's just, it drills into your brain. I can't stand it.
So this is Christmas. I hope you have fun. The near and the dear one.
Oh man, another one. Last Christmas by Wham. Oh man, that song is just
80s-tastic.
awful. Oh, 80s-tastic.
I mean, what more would you expect?
It's
from
just
Wham?
played all the time. It's not good, and
No.
it's just I just have to turn it off. There's just so many songs in the vein of these songs that we're speaking of now.
So campy, so cheesy.
Last Christmas I gave you my heart, but the very next day you gave
But one thing too, I want to mention, Jake, I would be interested in your thoughts. These are all very like individualized songs. A lot of the ones that we mentioned were originals that just didn't really resonate. What about some classics? What are some classics that you hear tons of versions of that you just, no matter what the version, you don't like?
Yes. Okay. Well, there's 3 that come to mind. Just
okay.
Top of mind here, Up on the Housetop. Just the most annoying song. I get that that's a little bit of a kid's song, but artists like She and Him or Pomplamoose or other shitty indie artists decide to do renditions of Up on the Housetop, and it's not cute. It usually is stupid. Just that song itself is just kind of an annoying song.
Jake's got his resting Grinch face on.
Resting Grinch face. That's good. I like that. Silent Night. Silent Night is one that I've just always found to just
really
not be a song that just really resonates with me. It just kind of it kind of just describes ending.
See,
and like it's just kind of goes on and doesn't really have any good chorus lines or anything like that.
I like Silent Night, but I feel like Oh Holy Night does a similar thing, only better.
So if you want to talk, I got one more negative before we talk about Oh Holy Night.
Okay.
The other one is Frosty the Snowman. For me, I hate Frosty the Snowman. First of all, it has nothing to do with the holidays. Has nothing to do with it, other than the fact that snow and Christmas coincide in the same season. Right?
That's true.
Other than that, like, Frosty the Snowman is ridiculous. And it's a ridiculous story to begin with. It is just the most annoying song ever. And I have to believe it's the actual song itself. Because every artist I've heard try to do Frosty the Snowman, I still hate the song.
Yeah.
So it has to be something in the actual song writing that actually makes me not like it.
Yeah. So one that I really don't like, and I'm sorry to poop on your Christmas, Jake, because you mentioned that you really do like this one. I am not a fan of Santa Baby, any version of it. I'm just not.
That's below the belt, buddy.
We're going to create some dissension here, but it's something about it, especially there's this one version, I honestly don't know who does it, but it's an older version that you hear probably most often.
Probably the original.
Right. And it's just this whiny female vocalist that just, it sounds so like, and she's just talking about how she wants like money and real estate and stuff. And I'm like, really? Like, come on.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of it.
So yes, to me, this song is satirical, right?
Yeah,
and so, like,
that's a good point.
That's why I really like Madonna's version of it, because I think she just sells it really well. Like, it's supposed to be sleazy, this disgusting, yet sexy woman that is just wanting everything and contributing nothing to the world, right? Like, House Bunny or something like that, singing about all the things that they want for Christmas.
I never actually thought of it from a satirical point of view.
Yeah.
You have changed my Christmas, Jake Jackson.
Oh, well, that's wonderful. So what I really so I like that commentary. So like all the things that you were saying about John Lennon, and he was so direct about it. Like the satire of Santa Baby accomplishes the same thing in a much more tactful, thoughtful way.
I agree with that.
Than jackass John Lennon just preaching. So like it makes you think. And the other thing is that it's honestly a very nicely written tune. You have it's normally presented in a very jazzy format.
Yeah.
It's danceable. I often dance with it. To it with my wife, and it's just kind of that go-to Christmas jazz song for me.
God damn it! I hate it when you're right.
I know you're gonna start liking this song now.
I think you turned me around on that one.
So you mentioned "Oh Holy Night" a couple minutes ago, Tom, and as being similar to Silent Night, obviously both about night, but "Oh Holy Night" is obviously a very religious-based song, a Christian-based song. And I'll just come out and say I am not the most overly religious person that you know. And I will say this: this is my favorite Christmas song, hands down.
Nice.
I cannot stop listening to this song of any version I can get my hands on. I've actually gone on a quest to try to find the perfect version of "Oh Holy Night." And the reason why I like "Oh Holy Night" so much is a lot of the same reasons why I like exit music for film. Track 4 off of Radiohead's 1997 album "OK Computer." Exit music for a film is this quiet acoustic song that then just builds and is very minor keyed and emotional at the end, and it just has this big climax. "Oh Holy Night" does something very similar in a much more classical tone, Usually starts off with a simple instrumentation and vocals and just very quietly sung, but then it builds and you usually have a chorus coming in behind the primary vocalist, and then they belt out the lyrics towards the end of the song, and it just gets so loud, so overwhelming that it comes out of nowhere and then goes right back down. The use of dynamics in "Oh Holy Night" is unlike any other Christmas song out there, and that's why it's my favorite.
You know what probably mine is? I do love "Oh Holy Night," but probably for me, it's "Carol of the Bells."
Yes, that's another one of my favorites.
I rarely hear a version of that song that I don't like. Yep. I love the drama of it. It's so like it's dark, but it still is like a fun, like kind of aggressive Christmas song.
And it could be translated into metal, as in Trans-Siberian Orchestra's version.
Yeah, absolutely, because it presents itself, a lot of harmony, a lot of rhythm.
Yeah.
I even love Mr. Mackey from South Park's rendition of it when all the bells seem to say "Ding Dong, okay."
Okay. Oh Holy Night, just disclaimer I got to throw out there. If anyone listening to this has heard a version of Oh Holy Night that they absolutely love, send it my way. Ping us and let us know, because we absolutely have to find the best version. I have been searching. There was just one time I heard like the perfect version of Oh Holy Night, like gave me goosebumps, almost brought me to tears. And I've been searching for it for years, and I can't find it. I can't tell you. I have Googled this so many times and played so many samples of different versions. There's hundreds of versions of this song. Just trying to find it, and even like old YouTube recordings of like people, like famous singers back in like the 20s singing "Oh Holy Night," and I can't find it. Dude, I can't find the one that I was thinking.
I never thought we would have a podcast with a cliffhanger.
I know.
I'm going to take to the streets. I'm going to print off with your phone number, little tabs, like, have you heard this? Oh Holy Night. Call Jake Jackson.
I want to find it. I want to find it because it's out there somewhere.
I hope you do. You got to let me know.
Yeah, and Celine Dion's version just doesn't do it justice. I mean, Celine Dion's great, but not that great. And now I just want to watch South Park. So that wraps up our podcast talking about all things Christmas music, holiday music at Velocities in Music. A topic that we haven't talked a lot about over the years, and I know this is kind of a controversial topic for music aficionados out there, but it is something that I think warrants discussion, is just what makes a good Christmas album or a Christmas song, and what are some of the reasons why Christmas music is so prevalent now and how it affects our lives. And I'm glad, Tom, that we were able to finally get this off our chest, because it's something that we talk about every year and just never had a chance to share with people. Thank you guys, as we always say at the end of every podcast episode, thank you for listening to Velocities in Music. It means so much to us, and especially when you guys take the time to comment or reach out to us on Facebook or email or our website or on our YouTube channel. We try to keep up with replies as best we can, and really appreciate the music discussion that this podcast generates. That is the whole point of Velocities in Music, and we really appreciate your guys' support in helping us trying to create this community that we are trying to create. The way that you can help support us is not only to comment on our videos and reach out to us, but also tell your friends who you think would like Velocities in Music and the content we provide on this podcast. Tell your friends about Velocities in Music and share it with them. We want to grow this community in a way that fosters really good music discussion and really beneficial music discussion. So if you have people in your life that you would like to share Velocities in Music with, we definitely would love it and appreciate it if you did so. I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are Velocities in Music, moving music discussion forward. Oh, man. Another one. Last Christmas. I want you to edit that out.
I might.
Damn it, Tom.